Like I said, so this workshop will help you when you are pitching your ideas, right? Because it will teach you about social entrepreneurism. So it will, hopefully, it will shed light on how you can ideate, right? Or potential ideas that have massive impact in terms of social as well as environmental impact. Okay. So hence I made it mandatory for first year students. Other students already have been exposed to this idea pitching workshops. We have done this previously. Okay. But for the first year students, this is entirely new. Hence, we ask you to join it mandatorily because we want you to be, okay, you should know this so that you have maximum chance of your idea being selected. Okay. So now that said, let's talk about the workshop mode. So normally workshops are actually conducted differently. Okay. It is normally offline, right? It is kind of informal, right? And normally people are divided into groups. It involves a number of hands-on sessions. Okay. So we do a number of hands-on sessions, exercises, right? And that is how knowledge is imparted and skills are developed in a workshop. But like I said, we have limitations here because we are talking about COVID here, right? So we have to conduct this online. So online means mostly I'll be doing the talking, right? I have tried to make it as practical as possible by illustrating and giving examples. In between, I will give you ample opportunity for discussion. Okay, so students, I'd like you to participate. Okay, please discuss, participate, share your ideas. Okay, because workshops normally have to be two ways. It has to be, it cannot just be one way. It is not a lecture, right? It has to be participative and we'd like you to participate. Okay, the other thing about this workshop is once this workshop has been completed, okay, we will put up this information, what has transpired in the workshop, along with all the resources that I'll be utilizing in this workshop. It will be put up on our website. So students, you can go there, you can download those websites. Okay, there's an SLM, self-learning material, compiled specifically for this workshop on business ideation. Okay, it focuses on social entrepreneurism. Because I understandably, this workshop, for many of you, it will be difficult to follow because of technical issues as well as other issues, right? So what we will do, like I said, I will upload the materials to the to our website. You can download those materials. Okay, so once you have downloaded those materials, then like I said, you can learn it, you can review it, you can do it at your leisure. Okay, and hopefully you will do that, right? It is my expectation that you will do that, and then reinforce it with the recordings that will also be put up on the website. Okay, so that is how we'll do this workshop, right? This workshop mode will be done like that. Okay, now just give me a minute. Okay. Hold on. I'm trying to get something done. Okay, please just give me a minute. Okay, done. Yeah. So now let's continue with the workshop without further ado. Okay. This workshop, like I said again, is on business ideation. Okay. And it will cover the following. So the agenda today is as follows. Okay. First, we'll talk about social entrepreneurism. I'll explain what social entrepreneurism and why it is important, right? Secondly, we'll talk about how to identify opportunities specifically related to social entrepreneurism. Okay, because when we are talking about opportunity finding, social entrepreneurism, like I said, has to have a certain approach. So we'll look at those approaches. We will try to identify approaches. Then we'll talk about ideation techniques. So ideation techniques is actually what this workshop is about, right? We'll ideate. Ideation means how to come up with a possible product or a service given an opportunity. So there are many ways of approaching this task. Okay, so we'll look at the following techniques. We'll look at jobs to be done. We'll look at creative challenge. We'll look at heuristics, hit matrix. something called random stimulus, as well as provocation and movement. And by the way, this is just the tip of the iceberg. Okay, please don't think that this list is exhaustive. This is just the tip of the iceberg. Actually, there are a lot more techniques. The SLM alone has more than 9 techniques. If you go further, if you go online, you will find many more techniques. Okay, a lot more than 9 techniques. So you can approach this problem in many ways. What I've done is I've selected a few that I thought was most promising. Okay, that can really help you ideate, right? Okay, so these are the, and so this is the agenda for today's workshop. Okay, we'll start with social entrepreneurism. We'll talk about identifying opportunities, and then we'll talk about ideation techniques. We'll talk about the following ideation techniques. And like I said, in between, I'll ask you discussion questions. I'll ask you to participate, so please do so. Okay, so first of all, understanding social entrepreneurism, right? What is social entrepreneurism? Because as I mentioned earlier, social entrepreneurism is a concept that is up and coming. Okay, it is becoming a global trend now. In fact, a lot of the times, entrepreneurs are actually gauged or measured on the basis of their impact on society, right? On the basis of their impact on the environment, on the basis of their impact on economy. Okay, so that is what social entrepreneurism actually is, right? It is a social entrepreneurism is a business for a social or environmental cause. Okay, another way of defining social entrepreneurism. It is about seeking positive social and environmental change by employing business entrepreneurial principles, processes, and operations. Now, previously, if you look at social entrepreneurism, right, when we talk about social issues and when we talk about environmental issues, these were the domain of NGOs, non-government organizations or non-profit organizations. They were the ones who were primarily concerned with social well-being and environmental well-being. Okay, but now, like I said, there's a trend, there's a change. Okay, we want to encourage social entrepreneurism. Businesses are becoming more and more aware, right? And now we understand how actually businesses have such a massive impact on society and on the environment, right? So it only makes sense that businesses should likewise be focused on social and environmental issues. So if you are doing that, then you are a social entrepreneur. Okay, your business is a social enterprise. So social enterprise, like I said, the key difference is what? A social enterprise, unlike a traditional for-profit organization, is not motivated by profits alone. Okay, social entrepreneurism, actually, they are guided by social and environmental cause primarily. That is their first and foremost objective. They want to address a social issue. They want to address an environmental issue. And on the side, they also want to make profits. They want to sustain themselves, unlike NGOs, right, and non-profit organizations that actually rely on donations. Okay, social entrepreneurism actually are self-sustaining, right? So now let me ask you a question. Can anyone provide examples of social and environmental impact? Because here we're talking about having a positive social and environmental change, right? A business is having a social and environmental change. So can somebody provide examples of what we mean by social and environmental impact? Or in other words, let me ask you, okay, what are some social issues that we are facing? Does anybody know? Can somebody, or environmental problems that we are facing?
Water use and conservation.
Good. Excellent. Okay. Water use and conservation is definitely an environmental issue, right? What else? Anybody? There should be plenty. Okay. So here is a quick look. Okay. So when we talk about social problems, we are talking about all these problems. We are talking about child labor. We are talking about girl infanticide, girl children infanticide. Okay. Women and child abuse, malnutrition, drug abuse, illiteracy, homelessness, corruption, dowry, poverty, okay, rape, discrimination, drinking, robbery, child marriage, and so on and so forth, right? There are plenty of social issues in the like surrounding us. Okay, so the whole idea is when you form a business, you are not only forming a business, you're trying to address the social issues. You're trying to resolve the social issues, right? You're trying to rectify, okay, bring correction to the social issues. And therefore, your business will have a higher purpose. And that is what social entrepreneurism is about. It is not just about profits. It is about having a social impact. Okay, so it is actually quite simple. And in fact, it is a very good approach for ideating businesses. Okay, so we'll talk about this shortly, right? Okay, so now, like I said, and likewise with environment, and shortly we will look at some environmental issues. Okay, like this, there are plenty of environmental issues. I don't want to highlight them now. It's too early, but we'll come to it eventually. Okay, so first of all, before we even start to ideate products and services, right? Before we even decide to sell a product and services, what we need to do is we need to identify opportunity. Okay, we have to first identify opportunity, and this is where social entrepreneurism differs from your traditional businesses, for-profit organizations. Because for-profit organizations normally look to the market, right? They look at opportunities prevalent in the market. What do the consumers demand? Where are the gaps, right, in the product lines that we can fulfill, right, that we can exploit? Okay, so they normally look to the market for opportunities. But if you are a social enterprise, you'll be looking elsewhere. You'll be looking at social issues, both at the local, national, as well as global level. Okay, you'll be looking at local issues, national issues, and global issues, right? And we're talking about social issues. And I highlighted what those social issues are earlier, right? That big graphic. Those are all social issues surrounding us. Okay, so this is called the, okay, let me just point to use a screen pointer. Yeah, so if you look at this, this is the external environmental assessment. Okay, so normally if you are aware of, especially MBA students, right, we call this environmental scanning. And we normally use PESTEL, right? Okay, political, legal, social, environment, and so on, environment. Okay, this is something very similar, but instead we're looking at social issues at local, national, and global levels. Okay, but just looking at issues is not enough, right? We also have to carry out an internal self-assessment. Okay, so internal self-assessment means we have to look at our strengths. We have to look at our principles. What is our guiding principle? So you have to first define it, sit, understand what the principles are for you, right? What are your values, what you hold, what you cherish as an individual, right? As a human being, as an Indian citizen. Okay, what are you most passionate about? So these are all very important factors, right, in terms of internal self-assessment. So when you combine local, global, and national issues, and then when you combine this by assessing your strength, principle, values, and passion, then you will identify a promising opportunity. Okay, and defining the opportunity is the first part, right? So this is the defining opportunity part. Okay, we have defined the opportunity. And in defining the opportunity, we have to carry out an external environment as well as internal self-assessment. Passion is very important, by the way, guys. Okay, in fact, passion is very important. So because a lot of the times entrepreneurs, they have to sustain themselves, right? So passion is a big part of ideating. Okay, so when you're ideating, you have to make sure that what you are proposing, you have to be absolutely passionate about it. And actually, social issues provides you with all the platform for you to be absolutely passionate about, because at heart, all of us have social issues, right? We care about social issues. We care about poverty. We care about homelessness. We want to remove illiteracy. We want to ensure gender equality, and so on and so forth, right? So we just have to identify what we are passionate about. And accordingly, we have to identify the opportunity. Once we have identified the opportunity, that is called defining the opportunity. Then we ideate. So ideate, like I said, means now you have to think about how How are you going to resolve this problem, or alleviate this problem, or address this social problem, right? At the same time, also sustain yourself as a business. So this is the ideation part, okay, where we are ideating solutions. And normally here we are talking about products and services. So this class is focused on these two phases. We are already talking about the define phase, how we are going to define, right? And like I said, we start by looking at the environment, external environment. We are looking at the social issues, both at the local, national, and global levels. Then we do a internal self-assessment. So that is the defining part. The ideating part is all those methods that we talked about. So I'll talk about ideating part later on. Once you ideate, next we prototype and test, right? We create a working prototype, okay, and then we test the prototype. And if it's feasible, if it looks successful, and if it looks promising, then we try to commercialize it and make money out of it. Okay, so this is essentially it, right? So this is how we identify opportunities. Okay, so this is the first part of defining opportunities. A good way, okay, one very good way for social entrepreneurs to get ideas is to look very big. Okay, for example, something called the United Nations. Okay, the United Nations is one of the largest non-profit organizations, right? And they're looking at all the social issues, okay, at an international level. And in fact, they have come up with 17 goals, right? These are called the Sustainable Development Goals. Okay, so now these Sustainable Development Goals, if you are into all this non-profit kind of things, you will be very aware of this. Okay, for example, no poverty, no hunger, good health, good quality education, gender equality, clean water, renewable energy, okay, and so on. So these are all the goals that the United Nations has set. Okay, and the idea is, like I said, you have to identify your passion. Which goal speaks to you, right? Which goal motivates you, right? You should write them down. And I know, like, for example, all of us, we will have some goals, one or the other, that will speak out to you. For example, for myself, innovation and infrastructure is particularly important. Also, sustainable cities and communities are very important. Likewise, climate action is very important. Okay, so these are social issues that I care about. So maybe I can start from there. So like I said, this is just to get you started. Okay, by looking at the United Nations 17 Sustainable Development Goals, right? A lot of the time, actually, if you look at all the other social entrepreneurism enterprises, they are tying in their objectives with these 17 goals, right? They're looking at these 17 goals. Okay, and obviously you cannot address all the 17 goals. You will have to address one or two goals, right? But a lot of these goals are interlinked. So when you elevate one, you elevate multiple other areas as well. Okay, so all these are linked. But like I said, this is a good starting point, right? Now here's my question to you. Okay, let's try to do this quick exercise. So earlier I was talking about environmental issues. So these are the environmental issues surrounding us. Okay, we are surrounded by poor governance. We are surrounded by food waste. It is so surprising that actually just now we are living in an era where we are generating the maximum amount of food, wasting the maximum amount of food, and still there's a huge amount of poverty and hunger. Okay, this is so surprising, right? Because we are wasting the maximum, we are producing the maximum, and still there's a lot of hunger and malnutrition. Sorry. Okay, malnutrition, right? Okay, so food waste is there. Then there's biodiversity loss. Then there's plastic pollution, deforestation, air pollution, agriculture, global warming, melting ice caps, food and water insecurity. Okay, so all these are actually environment-related issues. Now, here's my question to you. Okay, very quickly, just from the top of your head, can you ideate 5 social enterprises to address any of these issues? I'll give you, actually not 7 minutes, I'll give you 5 minutes. Okay, or maybe 3 minutes. Please try to come up with 5 ideas by looking at these issues. Can you come up with ideas? Because these are opportunities. Problems are normally opportunities. Please keep that in mind. Whenever you encounter a problem, that means there is an opportunity for you to resolve it. there's a business opportunity inherent in there. Okay, for example, if you look at Gangtok, traffic is a big problem. There's a lot of opportunities there, right? For people with ideas. You could start a bike taxi. You could start carpooling services. You could start bus services and so on and so forth. So remember, like I said, okay, when you have a problem, problems are opportunities. Here, what we are seeing is a list of problems. Can you ideate, at least quickly, 5 social enterprises to address any of these issues? And if you have ideas, please now put them out. It doesn't have to be world-class idea, okay? Just ideas. For example, poor governance. What can we do about poor governance? What can we do about food waste? Can we do anything about food waste that is happening? For example, restaurants, hotels, massive amount of food waste, right? Can we tap into those? Biodiversity loss, just now there's happening because of climate change. Plastic pollution, you see, is rampant. Everywhere there's plastic, plastic, plastics. What can we do about it? Deforestation is actually increasing, especially in India. What can we do? Air pollution, you know, is a major problem, right? What can we do? So please try, okay, very quickly. I just want some ideas because these are problems, like I said, provides opportunity. Okay, by the way, is this recorded? Is this session been recorded?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. So does anybody have any ideas? After this, I'll show you 5 ideas that I came up with. Okay, and I came up with those 5 ideas in a matter of maybe 7 or 8 minutes. So obviously, like I said, we are not looking at the feasibility. We are just ideating. Okay, feasibility comes later. Sustainability comes later, right? Business model comes later. Okay, just now we're just merely ideating. Ideating means you have to be very creative, by the way. Okay, and you shouldn't set borders on whether it's workable or not. Just now, you should not be concerned whether it works or not, whether it's practical or not. That comes much later when we do feasibility assessments, right? Just now, when you're ideating, you should be open, out of the box thinking. In fact, the tools that we'll talk about encourages a lot of out of the box thinking, right? So we'll look at those, okay? And that is the idea behind ideating. So anyone? At least 1 or 2 ideas. Come on, class.
So for food waste, we can start organic fertilizer company.
Okay, good. Yeah, absolutely. She is saying we can organize a organic fertilizer company for food waste. Okay, that can be done. Yes.
So again, for food waste, we can act as a bridge, so that we can act as a link, or rather a bridge. We can take the leftover foods from the restaurant and provide it them to the needy, like some
Good.
NGOs are
Excellent.
already doing.
Yeah, actually, plenty of organizations are doing that already, right? Food waste. Okay, especially given like places like Gangtok, where we have a large number of hotels. Okay, we can make the maximum benefit out of it, right? Good, excellent. Okay, what else? One more idea.
For air pollution, we can sell canned air.
Okay, what about air pollution?
We can sell canned air.
Okay, yeah, your voice is breaking up. Okay, your voice is breaking up. Okay, so anyways, good that you're glad that you're participating. Okay, and in fact, your ideas are very similar to mine. First, I said, let's start a food donation service. It can be based on app, right? We can have a mobile app where actually restaurants and hotels can participate and so on. So we don't have to work out the details now, right? A quick idea is what we are looking at. Biodiversity loss. Let's start a portal, right? A web knowledge portal where we actually start publicizing uh, publications on biodiversity loss that is happening in our local region. Please keep in mind, Sikkim is one of the biodiversity hotspots. There are only 36 hotspots in the entire globe. Okay, in the entire world, there are only 34, actually not 36, 34 geographically biodiversity hotspots. Hotspots, we call it when a location is losing its biodiversity because of climate change, right? When a location is losing all its biodiversity, then it is considered to be a hotspot. So it is a very valuable region in terms of environment. There are only 34 hotspots in the world. Sikkim happens to be one of them, and India has four actually, four biodiversity. One, right? One is Sikkim, then the Western Ghats, I think, right? Then maybe the Rajasthan Thar Desert, and so on. Okay, so these are biodiversity hotspots. Also, we live in the Himalayas, right? We are the third pole. Again, climate change is having a massive impact in our area. So biodiversity again plays very important role. Okay, so let's start a portal on biodiversity. And this way we can educate the population. Maybe we can take action. Maybe we can bring experts, try to mitigate what is happening, right? Let's start a plastic recycling plant. Okay, you'll see that there are plenty of examples of this done very successfully. We can do something called green mapping also. Okay, green mapping is, so these are just ideas, right? So very quickly, I was able to ideate looking at social issues, looking at environmental issues, not looking at the market, right? A lot of the times you will find that organizations, big companies, they're looking at the market. They're driven by the market. So when you're driven by the market, many times you miss out on all the social issues, right? And environmental issues. They take a back step. Okay, so that should not be the case. So what we are doing is we are putting this first and foremost, even before profits. We are ideating potential businesses, focus on what we can help, how we can help, and how we can have an impact on the social and environmental frontiers. Okay, likewise here, can you ideate some ideas on what we can do to alleviate any of these problems? Okay, so here are again some ideas. Okay, we can start up an app for reporting child and women abuse. We can start a portal, right? A knowledge portal for drug ailments. So drug abusers, they can join the anonymously. We can link them with doctors, with anonymous groups, with self-help groups, and so help them again, right? Defeat their addiction. We can start a school for BPL, below poverty level children. We can start assistance for rape victims. We can start an app for corruption reporting, right? And so on. So these are again enterprise ideas focus on social issues. Okay, and that should be our goal, right? That is the idea. So now let's look at an exercise. Okay, so this I want you to participate. Now, based on what I've told you, can you define how you will identify problem opportunity? At least provide try to come up with one way how you can identify opportunities. Okay, social opportunities. How will you start your approach? I hope you understood what the question is asking you. Okay, see, the question is saying, like I said, everything starts with opportunity, right? You have to first identify the opportunity. Then you ideate how to exploit that opportunity, or how to address that opportunity, or how to elevate that opportunity. An opportunity normally comes with a problem. There's a problem, and hence there's an opportunity for you to resolve it. right? So that is what we are talking about here. Okay, now can you tell me, can you come up with a way for identifying social opportunities based on what I have talked about, based on our short discourse on this, because this is opportunity spotting. Okay, we are talking about opportunity definition. It starts by identifying the opportunity first, defining the opportunity. Then we go into the ideation part, coming up with the relevant product or service to resolve that particular problem. Okay, but first of all, let's look at the opportunity, because if you are looking at the wrong opportunity, then you think, right, this is why I'm kind of skeptical about all this Facebook and all of this. Sorry, not Facebook, but with Apple and so on, right? iPhones. Okay, because iPhones and all, they are looking at a very exclusive, although that is their brand, right? I mean, iPhone, Apple, that is their brand. Okay, they are looking for exclusive clientele. But like I said, I mean, their research, their knowledge, their potential could be used in so many other ways, right? Instead of coming up with a better version of iPhones, they could have been coming up with a lot of other solutions to address social problems. Okay, so this is the problem with big companies. They are chasing the market. They're not chasing the social or environmental issues because there's not much scope there. There's not much profitability there, right? And so they shy away from this. But like I said, the trend now is we have to help, right? We have to look into the social and environmental problems. So how will you identify? First, where would you look into? I told you earlier, right? I gave you one way. So like I said, there's no hard and fixed rules, okay? There's no hard and fast rules concerning the method that you need to adopt. It can come in any ways. It could come just by you traveling on a car, right? And then you spot something, and then you see a problem, and then you come up with an idea to resolve that problem. For example, when I first came back, okay, from abroad, right? I came here, okay, and I wanted to start a business. If I did not get a good career opportunity, I was willing to become an entrepreneur. But I knew entrepreneur is very challenging, right? So what I did was I started by looking at social problems. And one area that I found was looking at all the small farmers selling on the roadside, right? So I thought, what is the problem with this, right? They are not able to get to the market. They're not able to reap the benefits, right? Offered by the market. So is there a solution to it? And there was a solution, right? Initially, the idea was to come up with a van. And this van will actually buy all the products from these roadside farmers. Then we'll open up a sabji mandi somewhere in Lal Bazaar. We'll have a central fridge or something, right? A cold storage unit where we can keep all this excess vegetables so that it won't rot, right? So this is just a way how ideas can come about. Okay, but obviously I never got to implement it because I got an opportunity with SMIT, right? They were looking for a professor, and for me that was less risky. So I chickened out. Okay, but anyways, like I said, right, to be entrepreneur, you have to be daring. That is given. Okay, you have to be daring. You have to take the risk. You have to shoulder the risk. It is very challenging. There's a high amount of failure among entrepreneurs. But like I said, if you are passionate, if you have chosen the right opportunity, you will always find the motivation to carry forward, right? So here are some ways. Start with the sustainable development goals like I was proposing earlier. Look at the 17 goals. See which goals speak out to you, right? Which goals you care for. Then start from there. Then explore issues related to that goal at the national and local levels. Okay. So for example, if you're looking at illiteracy, then you can explore illiteracy issues at the national level and at the local level, right? And then while you are doing that, I'm sure you'll come across many solutions and many opportunities and problems. And you can come up then with an opportunity to identify. You can then identify an opportunity to address those problems, and hence you have a good business opportunity, right? So this is one way. Another way, what you can do is you can look into your passion. What are you most passionate about? For example, does climate really speak to you? Does poverty really speak to you? Does all this food wastage, all this homelessness really speak to you? Right? If it does, what can we do about it? Right? Then you can look into social entrepreneurism. Try to ideate solutions, right? And then identify opportunity from there. Okay, so here's just two ways by which we can approach and we can ideate opportunities or identify opportunities. We don't ideate, but we identify opportunities. Okay, sorry, we don't ideate opportunities, we identify opportunities. So when we are identifying opportunities, we can look at the right. We can look at the goals, right, and then so on. Okay, we can look at our passions, and there are many other ways by which you can start. It is up to you. But like I said, the point is you should put social and environmental issues first, even before profits. Okay, don't worry about making money at this stage. First, think about passion. First, think about social issues. That means the most to you. And then drive your passion. And money will automatically follow. Don't follow the money. Okay, the money will follow you. Right? If you have the right passion, if you have the right opportunity, I'm guaranteeing you, you will succeed. Right? So that is the idea. Okay. So now what happens? So now we are finished with the first part, which is opportunity spotting or identifying opportunity or defining opportunity. Okay. So we talked about these ways, right? And these are some methods and these are some approaches by which you can identify opportunities. Now, what is the next step? Once we have identified opportunities, the next step is ideating. Okay, ideating means now we have to define, we have to come up with a product or a service to resolve an opportunity, to elevate an opportunity, right? To address a problem. So there are many techniques for doing this. One of the best techniques that I've come across is something called JTBD. Okay, jobs to be done. This is, I'm telling you, this is one of the most excellent methods. I first came across this when I was doing my PhD study, and obviously I incorporate this in my PhD study as well, right? Jobs to be done. Okay, so we'll first talk about this technique called JTBD. So let's get started. Now we are talking about ideation. Okay, again, let me repeat. First comes opportunity spotting or defining the opportunity. So if you are talking about social enterprises, you should look into social issues, environmental issues. Do not look into the market. Look into social issues, look into environmental issues, look into your passion and so on, right? And then from there, you will identify opportunities. Now, once you have identified opportunity, for example, you realize that actually in Sikkim, there's a lot of traffic problem. This is a social problem, by the way, and it is a big problem. It is a big social problem. Now, what can you do to elevate this problem, right? So now that we have defined the opportunity, how do we come up with the products or services? Now, this is where all these techniques comes in. Okay, this has to do with ideation, where we are creating the products or services to address a given opportunity, right? So now let's look at this first technique called JTBD, jobs to be done. So what is it? It is first and foremost an innovation technique, right? Innovation technique, like I said, actually we can consider it to be an invention technique as well, right? Innovation improves upon something that is already existing. Invention is something that you can create entirely new. Okay, so it can be both an invention as well as an innovation technique, right? It involves identifying the higher purpose for which customers buy products, services, and solutions. Okay, so what we are doing is we are trying to identify, understand the higher purpose for which customers buys a particular product. For example, when I go out and when I buy, let's say, a samosa, what is my main objective? So you have to identify what is the higher purpose. Is it to fulfill, is it because I just want something, right? I want to satisfy my hunger, right? So that will be the higher purpose. Okay, satisfying the hunger by buying a samosa, right? So samosa actually has a higher purpose. Why the customer is buying samosa is because he wants to satisfy his hunger. So you have to understand the higher purpose and jobs to be done. This is a technique that allows us to identify those higher purpose. So we'll talk about how, okay, shortly. It is based on the idea that customers hire various products at various points to get a wide array of jobs done. So when we are talking about customers, okay, and what they when they are buying products, right? What we are trying to do is we are trying to identify what is the higher purpose behind the customer buying a particular product. What is it that the customer wants to accomplish by buying or by buying a particular product? Okay, so we need to identify that. For example, when I go out and buy a razor, right? Raising a razor. Why am I buying a razor? It is obviously because I want to cut my beard, right? Or my mustache. Okay, I want to shave my mustache, right? And hence I'm buying a razor. Okay, so now given the higher purpose is because I want to shave off facial hair. Now, can the company come up with additional products, right? Other than a shaving razor that can fulfill this higher job or purpose for which I bought the product? They could easily come up with something called a laser point or something, right? That will permanently take off all the hair, right? So that is a potential solution. Okay, so this is the idea behind, concept behind jobs to be done, is you try to identify the higher purpose and accordingly you look for alternatives other than the existing product. Is there other alternatives that will better satisfy this higher purpose? And here's a classic example. So please read this. I'll be silent for 1 minute. Okay, you please read this and I will discuss this. Okay, so class, do we understand this? Class, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so are you following this? Okay, so this lawnmower example, I think, is a very classic example of how jobs to be done actually can be implemented. Okay, look at this company. Instead of looking at lawn mowers, right? Because the higher purpose is to keep the grass low and clean. So if they can come up with genetically modified grasses that actually doesn't grow above a certain length and that always maintains that particular height, that will be the better, right? Then we don't require lawn mowers. Okay, so this is what we mean by jobs to be done. What you have to do is you have to look at the jobs. Why does a customer buy a product from you, right? What is it? What job is the customer trying to do by buying a product or a service from you? If you're able to identify this job, then look for higher purpose and then look for alternatives. Chances are you will come up with radically new products, radically new ideas, novel ideas, right? And this is what we are talking about. Instead of right, being bounded by boundaries. Okay, we think outside of the box, right? So jobs to be done, actually, it has the following steps. Okay, first is you identify a focus market, then you identify jobs customers are trying to get done. So when you are trying to identify jobs customers are trying to get done, this is not done easily, by the way, right? So for this, you have to carry out fairly good amount of study. So these are various techniques. We won't talk about all these techniques. Okay, I'm just mentioning this here. Things like ethnography, observations, interviews, customer complaints, surveys, focus group studies. Okay, These are all different methods that can be used to identify the customers. You can do a survey of the customers. You can interview the customers. You can do observation, right? You can look at customer complaints, and you can do a focus group studies and so on. All aimed at identifying what the customer is trying to accomplish, why he or she is buying a product. For example, when I go and buy a cup of tea, what is it that I'm trying to do, right? Is it because I want something sweet? Or is it because I want something hot? Or is it because I'm thirsty, right? What is it that I'm trying to fulfill? Or is it a social need? What is it? So you have to identify, and this identification is not easily done. So don't take it too easily also. Okay, so for this, there are many different techniques you may have to rely on. But if you do this well, then the next steps will follow, which is categorize the jobs to be done, right? So you realize that actually jobs can be categorized into two types. One is main job, the other is related job. Okay, so a job can be a main job. For example, when I buy a razor, right? My main job is to shave, right? But there may be other related jobs. For example, I don't want to cut myself. Okay, that may be a related job, right? At the same time, I may want to moisturize my skin after shaving. That may be a related job, right? So all this actually are part and parcel. Okay, so when you identify the jobs, you have to segregate the job into main job and related jobs, right? Then we create job statements. And finally, we list the JTBDs, related outcome expectations. Okay, please give me a minute. Okay, somebody's knocking on the door. Okay, let's continue. Okay, so this is identify a focus market, right? Identify a focus market, then identify the job customers are trying to get done, categorize the jobs, then create something called job statements. So we'll look at what job statements are. Then finally, we look at expectations. So we define the expectations. Okay, so let's look at another example. Now, let's suppose, first of all, it says you have to identify a focus market. So in your sense, right, okay, I took a context that all of you have, right, which is university students. Okay, so identify a focus market. So let's say we are focusing on university students. Okay, so this is where you want to focus on. This is your target market, right? Your target market is your focus market. Okay, and you want to focus on university students. You want to come up with a product or service that is aimed at university students. Now, next, we'll look at jobs the customers are trying to get done. In this case, we're talking about university students. So what do university students normally do? They study, right? This is one of the jobs that they have to do. They have to study. The other job that they have to do is they like to hang out, right? The other job they have to do is they have to shop. The other job they have to do is maybe they may look for part-time jobs. Okay, so now we have identified several jobs that customers like to do. This focus group likes to do. One is they have to study, the other they have to hang out, the other they have to shop, the other they have to seek for part-time jobs. Okay, so how do we, so now let's take this further. Now, again, like I said, when we are ideating, we cannot look at each and every possible opportunity. So we have to select. So in this case, I've selected studying, okay, as the job that is most important for university students, right? So now let's look at studying. So this is the fourth part. Okay, once we have identified the jobs, now we have to identify the functional aspects, the emotional aspects of jobs of studying. So the functional aspects of studying means what is the job? When the customers are carrying out this job, what do they normally do, right? So this is what students normally do. They make notes when they are studying. They highlight passages and text. They have to capture the insights and understanding. They also want to test and assess and evaluate their understanding, skills, and knowledge, right? So these are the functional aspects of jobs to be done. The functional aspects, I would say, carry the most maximum weightage. Okay, functional aspects, like I said, essentially means what does the customer do actually when he or she is carrying out the job. So in this case, when the customers, university students are studying, they are normally making notes. They are highlighting passages and text. They are capturing insights and understanding. They are assessing, evaluating understanding skills. They have to assess, evaluate their own understanding skills and knowledge, right? Then there's an emotional part to it also. The emotional part is once they do this exercise, when they're carrying out this job, they feel good. There's a personal growth, there's a personal development aspect to it, right? That is why we come to the universities, because like I said, it is not only for academic knowledge, but it is also for personal growth and personal development. Okay, and there's also an emotional aspect, but socially oriented. Socially oriented means how you want to be achieved, how do you want to be perceived in the society. So normally students want to be recognized for their achievements, especially in terms of academics, right? Also, they may want to share knowledge, right? And so on. So these are the related jobs, not direct jobs, but related jobs. For example, when they are studying, they may want to collaborate and cooperate with other students. They may want to share. They may want to document what they are studying. Okay, so these are all related jobs, right? Of jobs to be done. So again, just now, if it seems a little overwhelming, okay, and what I'm saying, if it doesn't quite make sense, there is an SLM unit that will be put up. Okay, give me 2 days, right? Give me 2 days time. I think hopefully the website will be updated in 2 days time. And during this 2 days time, okay, it will have the summary of all this information will be put up on the website, along with the SLM, the self-learning material that I talked about, right? And if you look at the self-learning material, all of this is explained there. Okay, I'm in a bit of a rush because, like I said, our time is of essence. Okay, but like I said, when you are defining the jobs, so there is a main job and there are related jobs. The main job is the top one. And when you're talking about the top jobs, there's an emotional aspect to it. Emotional aspects can be both personal as well as social. Okay, so we have to look at all aspects, because when you come up with a product, now the idea is when you come up with a product, the product or a service has to satisfy all this. Okay, functional aspects, emotional aspects, right? As well as related jobs and emotional jobs related, emotional aspect related to the other jobs. Okay, it has to satisfy. And that is how you ensure that you have a successful product or a service. So jobs to be done, like I said, what we are doing by looking at jobs. So these are jobs that the customer is trying to do. He's trying to make notes. He's trying to highlight passages. He's trying to capture insights and understanding. He's trying to assess, evaluate understanding, skills and knowledge, right? All this he's trying to do when he's trying to study. So can you come up with a viable product or a service that allows the customer to address all of this? If you can, then like I said, you will have a very successful product at hand. Okay, so what we are doing is we are looking at jobs to be done, right? Okay, now next we create a job statement. So once we have identified the functional aspects, we create a job statement. Okay, a job statement normally has a verb, object of the verb, and a context. Okay, so I don't want to go into what a verb is, what an object of the verb is, and what a context is. But by giving you examples, I think it will become apparent. Verb is normally an action word, right? Anything, for example, transport, cut, study, run, work, all these are verbs. It is an action word, right? Anything related to action is a verb. Then you have to have an object of the verb, right? So that verb must have an object, and at the end it must have a context. So let me put this, okay, so to put this in our context, this is how it looks like. To make notes while studying at home or in the classroom. So to make is the verb, object is notes, right? So what does the student make? The student wants to make notes. What is the context? The context is while he's studying at home or in the classroom. He could be anywhere, right? He should be able to make notes very easily. Also, the student wants to capture insights and understanding while studying at home. So to capture again is the verb. Insights and understanding are actually the objects of the verb, and studying at home in the classroom is the context. Okay, so you have to create job statements like this. Okay, so this is called jobs to be done statements, right? Once you have jobs to be done statements, then you create something called expectations. Okay, related outcomes expectations. So what are outcome expectations? See, the outcome expectations are one of the most important thing, because when a customer is performing a job, the customer wants to do the job in the simplest way, the easiest way, the fastest way. So you can consider these to be the outcome. Okay, so these, you have to find the relevant outcomes to a particular job, right? You have to find the relevant outcomes to a particular job. And if you are able to find the relevant outcomes to a particular job, okay, then you have to ideate solutions that will satisfy those outcomes. And if you are able to ideate solutions to satisfy those outcomes, that will be the best. Okay, your success is assured. So for example, let's look at this statement. Okay, this is the jobs to be done statement: to make notes while studying at home or in the classroom, right? So I've just taken one statement. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at outcome expectations. Okay, both from the customer perspective as well as from the provider perspective. Provider is you. You are the provider. You are the business provider who will be providing a solution. So you also have certain expectations. You have to, your product or service has to meet your expectations as well as the expectations of the customers. So what are the customer's expectations? Let's look at it for this job, which is to make notes. The first expectation for a customer is it has to be seamless. Seamless means whatever the customer is doing, it has to fit in very nicely with whatever he or she does, right? It should be seamless. Secondly, it should be very easy and should require very minimum effort on the part of the customer. Okay, then it should be very easily trackable. Whatever the customer is doing should be easily trackable. For example, when you are making notes, many times you have to track it, right? You have to track it to a related topic. So all this should be easily done. It should be easily shareable. Whatever notes that you are making should be easily shareable with other students. It should have a minimum learning curve. Okay, minimum learning curve meaning what? Whatever product or service that you come up with, right? It should not require the customer to have a long learning curve. It should be something that should be very easy to follow and then implement. And it should be very easy to carry, whatever it is, right? Because like I said, the customer is studying at home as well as in the classroom. So this is something that the customer can take along with him. Okay, and so on. And as a provider, what are your expectations? Your expectation is that it should not be too technologically dependent. Okay, it should not rely on sophisticated internet connectivity and so on. It should be something that should be working without internet connectivity. It should be cheap to manufacture. It should be easy to store as well as transport. This is a very important consideration for providers, right? Because normally you have to, when you produce in bulks, and you have to think about transportation, distribution, right? So it should be easy to store and transport. It should be durable. Okay, now given all this requirements, can you come up with any ideas? Have you come up with any ideas? See, this is how we are ideating. Okay, so here what we are doing is we are ideating possible solutions by looking at jobs the customer is trying to do. In this case, we studied we took one job. The job was for university students to study. And we took one statement, and that job actually had many functional aspects. But we took one functional aspect, which is to make notes while studying at home. Okay, and now we are looking at, we are possibly ideating solutions here. So can you come up with any ideas? Has anyone come up with an idea? Or not clear what I'm talking about? Did anyone come up with any ideas? What kind of product? See, these are the requirements of the customer. These are the requirements, your requirements. Okay, the provider requirements, the customer requirements. This is the job the customer wants to do. The higher job is what? Studying, right? And in studying, the customer has to do a smaller job called making notes. So how can he make notes, right? And these are the requirements of the customer. It should be seamless. It should be easy with minimum effort. It should be easily trackable, shareable. It should have a minimum learning curve. It should be it should be easy to carry and so on. You may think a laptop might be the solution, but laptop, like I said, doesn't quite meet the requirements because laptop is not seamless. You have to open a laptop, you have to type in, it is not seamless at all. Okay, you have to know typing, there's a learning curve to it, and the learning curve can be quite high, quite steep, right? So here are some solutions. Okay, for example, you could come up with a tablet with a tracking pen that the customer or the company or the student can carry with him or her. It will also have a screen, right? And in this screen, the digital notes will appear. So if a customer is and the customer or student, while he's studying, he can make notes here on the tablet, and all these notes are recorded in the fountain pen, right? Which can then be transferred via Bluetooth. You don't require, let's say, internet. And if he wants to share notes, it can be done via Bluetooth or Zigbee or some other kind of shortwave communication methodologies. Okay. Alternately, there's another solution, right? You can have a smart pen. Already these products are existing. Okay. This pen also has a recording device, right? And so the lectures and so on can be recorded while the student can make notes, right? So there's a seamless integration. So like I said, okay, this is how we are ideating possible ideas by looking at the jobs. Okay, so this is the first technique we are talking about. Is this clear or not?
Yeah.
Did this make sense? Class, are you there?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, good. So please respond. Okay, good. So I hope this made sense. Like I said again, if it doesn't make sense, if it's a bit of a rush, like I said, you can always view this recording again, right? And also you'll have the SLM unit that will be posted on the portal, okay, on our website. So you can download that. Give it 2 days. Okay, we'll have this available. Okay, now let's move on to the next one. The next one is creative challenge. Okay, so in creative challenge, this is another technique for thinking outside of the box. What is it? It is an innovation technique aimed to question the current solution for a particular job to be done. So normally it is a carry forward, meaning that you have a job to be done, right? We have identified a particular job. So if you want to ideate additional solutions, creative solutions on how to fulfill this job, we can employ this technique called creative challenge. Okay, so how is this done? This is done by using the ERA method. The ERA method means what? E means we can eliminate. We look at things we can eliminate. We look at things, what are the reasons? Okay, then E, that is the eliminate part. Then R is the reason part. Then A is the alternative part. Okay, so this is called the ERA methodology. We look for steps to eliminate. If we cannot eliminate, then we look at the reason why we cannot eliminate. Then we look at alternatives on how this step that cannot be eliminated can be fulfilled. Okay, so this is called the ERA method. So ERA method again is an innovation method, right? So the steps are what? First is we select a focus topic, investigate the current solution, identify assumptions, and then apply ERA. Okay, so in this case, what we'll do is we'll look at an example. Okay, let's imagine just now the issue is online teaching. Everything has moved online, right? So one of the big issues with online is the quality of education. Is the quality of education maintained when we are doing it online? Okay, so now let's imagine we are going to use a creative challenge technique to ensure quality of online teaching. So how can we do that? I hope you understood what the problem is. Okay, our focus topic is improving the quality of online teaching post COVID-19, right? Because everything has moved online. So teaching is important, the quality has to be maintained. So how do we ensure this quality? Okay, so next thing is we investigate the current solution. So just now, what is the current solution? How are the faculties performing, carrying out this task of teaching, right, online? So we look at the process. Okay, so this is the process we found. Actually, the faculties prepare for class, then they conduct the class, and then they adjourn the class. Okay, so these are the three broad processes. First is preparing for the class, conducting the class, adjourning the class. Then we look at inputs to the process. When they are preparing for the class, what are their inputs? Their inputs normally should be session objectives. Session objectives are very important because session objectives actually define what the faculty is going to teach, right, in a particular class. So every session should have a series of objectives that they want to accomplish. Okay. For example, let's say this ideation workshop. One of my objectives is to ensure that the student understand the ideation techniques, right? So that is a session objective. Later on, these objectives can be used to measure the effectiveness of the workshop. Did the students understand? Did the session meet its objectives or not? Okay. Next thing the faculty does is they use PowerPoint. Then they use exercises and discussions. Okay. And while they are conducting the class, we require internet connectivity and we require Google Meet app, right? What is the output? The output from the process is session objectives, right? Once we have session objectives, right, we prepare the session objectives. So the output is session objectives. Here we use PowerPoint to create PowerPoint slides. Internet connectivity is required to conduct classes, and then the output is recordings. And then adjourning the classes, the output is attendance. Okay. Then we have the supplier. Then we look at the suppliers. Okay, who supplies the input? For example, in this case, the session objectives, the supplier is the faculty. PowerPoint, Microsoft Office, or Microsoft is the supplier. Again, exercises and class discussion questions. These again are supplied by the faculty, right? The internet connectivity is supplied by the ISP provider, and Google Meet is supplied by Google. Okay, next we have the customers. The customers are who? Who are the customers for this particular product? Okay, the session objectives, the customers are students. PowerPoint slides, the customers are students. Recording, the customers are students, right? For attendance, again, the customers are department faculty. By the way, if you don't know this, this is called SIPOC, S-I-P-O-C, SIPOC. This is called a SIPOC analysis. This is normally what we do when we try to understand the process. Okay, when we are trying to understand the process, we break the process down into its parts and components. So we look at the inputs, we look at the outputs, we look at the suppliers, we look at the customers, and this way we can get a very quick understanding of the entire process. So this is the current situation, right? This is the current situation, okay? So in order to identify the current situation in a creative challenge, what we do is we use this technique called SIPOC. Now, a quick word about these workshops. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, there are infinite number of tools, okay, that are available to our faculty of management or to management personnel or to management professionals. Okay, the idea is for you to utilize those tools, as I mentioned earlier, right? There are many tools and you need to utilize those tools, and you need to know how to utilize those tools. You need to understand the context. SIPOC happens to be one of very famous tools used widely by process practitioners and by management people who are who have an understanding of process. SIPOC is a very important and a very useful tool, okay, because it gives you a very quick understanding of processes that are very important or that may be quite complicated to understand. It breaks it down, right, into its parts and components, right? So here we're getting a quick understanding of what the current practice is. What the faculties do just now, when they are conducting online classes. Next thing we need to do is we need to identify the assumptions. So this one actually is just giving us a current scenario. What is happening just now, right? Now we need to understand the assumptions. What are the underlying assumptions, right? So underlying assumptions are these. All sessions have defined objectives. So we assume that all sessions have defined objectives. All sessions have accompanying slides, discussion questions, and class exercises. All students come prepared for the class. All students are actually attending the class and not just logging in. Every class is recorded and recordings are distributed to the student. And all students participate in the discussions. Technical issues will not arise, right? And technology will perform as required. Attendance records are all kept. Okay, so we identify important assumptions that we assume are actually there. But as we know, in reality, these things are not happening. Right? In reality, a lot of the sessions do not have defined objectives. Faculties are not creating defined objectives for each and every session. They may be creating for most sessions, but not all. As also, many of the faculties, they may not be having slides, PowerPoint slides. They may not be preparing discussion questions. Also, many of the students are not preparing. In fact, most of the students never come prepared for the class, right? And students are actually attending the class. We also don't know, right? Online mode. Okay, we can see that the student is logged in, whether the student is actually present on the other end, we don't know, right? So these are all assumptions. Okay, now, like I said, these assumptions actually assume what? That the quality, if all this is true, then the quality of education is good. Okay, if all this is true, then the quality of education is good. So our solution has to look into a solution that ensures that all these are true at all times. So how can we do this? Right? And this is where we apply the ERA technique. Okay, now we apply the ERA technique, the Creative Challenge Matrix. Okay, so first look at each element. So for example, these assumptions, we'll look at these assumptions. Okay, all sessions have well-defined teaching objective. Can we eliminate this? No, we cannot eliminate this step, right? This is a very important step because, like I said, this ensures the quality of teaching is good. So how do we ensure this? We have to develop an objective setting feature for each session mandatory. Okay, so this has to be made mandatory, right? So for example, just now we are talking about online teaching. We are probably talking about a Google Meet kind of app. Right? But just now Google Meet app has no such requirement because it is not aimed at online teaching. Google Meet is a very generic app. It is used for many purpose. It is not exactly geared for teaching. But if you want to ensure quality teaching, then you may have to come up with an alternative solution. This alternative solution will have something called objective setting feature. In this objective setting feature, every faculty, before he or she conducts a class, has to define a series of objectives for the session. And this is mandatory because without this, the software, the program won't start, or the program won't allow the faculty to proceed, right? So this is one solution. Okay. Second assumption was that students come prepared for the class. Can we eliminate this? No, we cannot eliminate this, right? The student preparation is again very important to ensure quality of the education. So how can we ensure students come prepared for the class? We should have a quiz or a test module, which the faculty can quickly create, and then he can have a questioning, so that when the students log in, they can initially be quizzed on their knowledge. And this, like I said, this quiz will carry point or marks, which will be carried forward to the internal marks. So this way we can ensure that the students are coming prepared for the class, right? Third assumption was that students are actually attending the class and not just logging in, right? Because like I said, okay, a lot of this online teaching, like I said, we can see that the student is logged in, but whether the student is actually present on the other side, we don't know. Many times it has happened that when I take the roll call, the students are not responding, although it says they are logged in, right? Which means that the student is not there on the other end. So what can we do? So we can develop something that automatically pings students at random, right? So while I'm conducting the class, this software will automatically start pinging students randomly. right? Okay, and each ping must be responded in 20 seconds. So the student will get something on his side, right? That says, are you there? So he has to click OK or present. Okay, if he doesn't click present in 20 seconds, then he is deemed absent. Okay, so this way we will randomly start pinging students, right? So this will ensure that the student has to be present on the other side to respond to these pings, right? And every class is recorded and recordings are distributed to the students. So like I said, all these are processes or steps to ensure quality education, right? And these are the features that we are coming up with. Okay, here we are listing out alternatives or features. And these are the solutions. These are the ideas, right, that we are coming up with, ideations that we are coming up with in order to satisfy these requirements. So this is called the creative challenge technique or the creative challenge matrix, okay, where we are ideating alternatives, right, where we are, we are ideating alternatives to satisfy a particular set of assumptions, right? Okay, so I won't talk too much on this, and this is it, right? So this is the creative challenge matrix, okay? So hopefully this is clear to you. And like I said, if this is not clear, this is the final product that we have created, okay? And these are the features of our product. So it will have a session mandatory. It will have a session setting module. It will have a test or quiz module. It will have a pinging kind of feature. It will have a centralized location where all the recordings are kept, from where students can easily download all the resources. Just now with Google Drive, it is not available, right? It is a kind of a challenge for students to download the thing. But this will not be the case if we have a customized software built specifically for online teaching. So obviously, like I said, these ideations are just a result of maybe 5 or 10 minutes of ideation on my part as a single individual. In reality, obviously, this will be conducted by a team, and it will be much more thorough, and it will be much more wider in scope. And so you can see the outcomes will be quite meaningful. Okay, here this is more demonstration. I just want to demonstrate, right, these principles or these methods. Okay, but in reality, like I said, okay, these methods will be much more, right? And actually the team, there'll be a team, there'll be a whole lot of experts, and the solutions that they come up with will be a lot more radical. Okay, so this is the creative challenge matrix. Okay, next we'll talk about the heuristic ideation matrix or the HIT matrix. So this again actually is quite interesting. Okay, so what is it? It is again an innovation technique based on comparing existing solutions to spark new breakthroughs. Okay, so what we are doing is, this is an innovation technique. What we do is we actually compare two different ideas, two radically different ideas, right? We compare two radically different ideas, okay, and we try to create a synergy. And when we are trying to create this synergy, it gives rise to a lot of new ideas, right? This was developed by somebody named Edward M. Tauber. Okay. Okay, so let's see. What are the steps? The first step is select existing items, list characteristics, populate the HIT matrix, and then qualify ideas, finally select ideas. Okay, so select existing items means what? We are talking about two ideas that are actually quite contrasting. Okay, they should not be of similar origin. They should be quite contrasting, which means, for example, you may be comparing apples and oranges. That is the idea. You have to compare apple and oranges, not actually even apple and oranges, because both of them are fruits. You can compare apple and, let's say, laptop or a microphone. Okay, so when you are taking these two seemingly unrelated ideas, then you have something called a heuristic ideation technique. So I'll explain what that is, right? Once we have taken two ideas, we have to list the characteristics. The next step is listing the characteristics, where we have to brainstorm. So when we are brainstorming, we brainstorming looking at who, what, why, when, how, right? This is a very common approach to brainstorming. So once we have brainstormed, then we populate the HIT matrix, which means we create an L matrix. I'll show you how this is done. Then we qualify the ideas, which means we review the ideas, and then finally we select the ideas that are most promising. So to give you an example, so please read this, okay? Then we'll look at how they have employed hit matrix to resolve this particular problem. Then we'll look at an exercise of our own creation. Okay, class, so do you understand what the problem is? What they're trying to do? We are talking about a company called Innovative Railways. Okay, and they're going to employ this hit matrix to come up with novel solutions. They want something that is more luxury oriented, right? They want to create a luxury experience for mid-distance business travelers. So what they have done is they have combined, they have taken two radically different ideas. One is luxury conference accommodations. Okay, they have taken this luxury conference. Okay, we're talking about luxury conference accommodations. And then next they are looking at international first class travel, which is their domain, right? And then what they have done is they have quickly ideated features or characteristics for each. So for example, luxury conference, they have come up with wireless access, spa services, personal chef, dedicated concierge, executive lounge. Okay, so these are all part of luxury conference accommodations, right? These are some characteristics that they have brainstormed. Likewise, for international first class travel, they have come up with reclining seats, in-seat chargers, gourmet meals, personal attention, expedited services. Okay, so this is called an L matrix, by the way, right? This is called an L matrix. So this is the vertical axis, right? Here we have the vertical axis. Here we have the horizontal axis. Okay, and here we have listed the various characteristics individually, right? Now what we do is we start putting these two characteristics together. So here we take wireless access and reclining seats and then put them together. Does it make sense? No, it doesn't make sense. Then we move to the next one, spa services and reclining seats. Does it make sense? Well, sort of. It does kind of make sense, right? Spa services can have reclining seats. Okay, personal chef and reclining seats. Does it make sense? No, it doesn't make sense. And so on. Okay, so what we do is we start pairing up each of these characteristics. And then you have to review what you have paired up. So many times the pairs actually might make sense. Some pairs will not make sense. For example, when you say spa services and in-seat chargers, it makes no sense. Okay, so in-seat chargers are maybe for mobile phones, right? So for example, when you're traveling first class, international first class, okay, you're traveling long distance. So your mobile phones might go dead. So they will have in-seat chargers. So wherever you're seated, you can charge your phone. But for a spa service, does that make sense? No, it doesn't make sense. So this idea, like I said, some pairing absolutely doesn't make sense. So you can cross them off. Okay. Other ideas make sense. For example, this one, spa services and reclining seats. This makes sense. So you can put a star to it. Likewise, spa services and gourmet meals actually makes sense, right? And so on. Okay, so this is called a hit matrix. So in hit matrix, what you do is you take two contradicting or two very diverse ideas, and then you brainstorm characteristics, the most obvious characteristics for each of those ideas. Then you put them together, and then you start evaluating which ideas make sense and which one doesn't make sense. Okay, now let's look at our example, right? So first is selecting items. Right? Select existing items. So what we will do is we will select ideas with no apparent connection. Okay. So what we want to do is we want to ideate a service business by comparing university and adventure camping. Okay, so we are talking about two very unrelated concepts. One is university, which is a seat for higher learning. Another is adventure camping, which has to do with more with tourism, right? So we'll compare these two and we'll try to come up with an ideate a service business. Okay, so let's see whether we can do this. So let's look at university. So when we brainstorm universities, very quickly we come across all this information, right? University means what? We are talking about friends, professors, campus, learning, skills, knowledge, job, young people, challenging, fun, and so on. Likewise, when we are talking about adventuring camping, okay, we're talking about trailblazers, sorry. We're talking about wild animals. We're talking about outdoors. We're talking about all ages, health, fitness, right? And maybe even jobs, right? Now, if you look at this, certain things doesn't qualify. Okay, for example, challenging, fun, these are not characteristics, right? So characteristics has to be something unique to that particular concept. It has to be more tangible. It cannot be a feeling. Okay, so challenging, fun, and all these are more kind of feelings, right? So it should not qualify. It should not be listed. Now we have plenty nonetheless. Okay, we have plenty of characteristics. So what we'll do now is we'll create an L matrix. So when we create an L matrix, we have here an L matrix. Here we have listed the university, right? And these are all the characteristics related to a university. And here we have adventure camp. And these are all the characteristics related to an adventure camp, right? Now we start putting the two together. Okay, so we take knowledge and we take adventurous. Knowledge and adventurous. Does it make sense? Yes, no, maybe not. Knowledge and outdoors. Does it make sense? Yes, maybe, right? Knowledge of outdoors. It may be important. Knowledge and health. Yes, maybe, right? Healthful knowledge about health and fitness is very important. And so on. Okay, so we have paired up all this information. Now we need to review each of these cells and we need to identify. So I've identified certain areas. For example, all this where I've marked with a star are potential ideas. Okay, so let's look at these ideas. Knowledge outdoors, knowledge healthy, knowledge wild animals, knowledge about tents, knowledge about wild animals, knowledge about health and fitness, knowledge about outdoors. Camp and outdoors, right? Skills and health, skills about wild animals, how to handle wild animals, skills about building up tents. Now, can somebody come up with ideas? Class, can you come up with an idea for a business that actually combines these concepts together? Where we are talking about university-like characteristics, but also we are talking about adventure camping. Can anybody come up with a solution? Ideate a solution, because here what we are doing is we are talking about ideation. These are different methods for ideation. Here we're looking at heuristics. Heuristics means rules, rules-based ideation technique. Okay, so you have to follow the rules, right? Take two contradictory ideas, brainstorm, create an L matrix, then pair the information up, see whether it makes sense or not. So many times it may not yield anything. Again, you may have to take two additional concepts, right? Two contradictory concepts. Again, try it out until you hit upon ideas that make sense. In my case, I came up with these ideas. One is adventure camping coaching center. Okay, so we can come up with an adventure camping coaching center, right? Because this adventure camping coaching center will have knowledge about outdoors, right? It will have knowledge about fitness and health. It will have knowledge about wild animals. It will have knowledge about tents. It will also teach them skills on building tents, skills about how to handle wild animals, skills about health and fitness. So we can have an adventure camping coaching center. Alternately, we can also have a TV show on adventure camping. Okay, so these are two ideations, right? Again, like I said, the outcomes of these ideations are a result of less than 10 minutes of ideation. So it is not quality ideation. It is more demonstration. Just to demonstrate to you that these ideas, these approaches actually work. Even though when I was creating this, I ideated this for maybe like 10 minutes. And within that 10 minutes, I got these ideas. So you can imagine when you put a team of people, experts, right? And when you do a good amount of ideation and when you do a good amount of thinking, the solutions that come out come out of it would be a much more meaningful. Okay, so this is the hit matrix ideation technique. Now let's look at random stimulus, right? Okay, before we go to random stimulus, okay, I think I will skip random stimulus, okay, because random stimulus is slightly a little complicated. Okay, also it doesn't quite apply to ideation. So I was thinking if we run out of time, I will skip this. So we are going to run out of time because I think I've only given myself till 4 o'clock. Okay, I don't want to extend beyond 4 o'clock, right? It is too much of a workshop. Okay, so I will skip this. But like I said, like I've skipped many others, you can review this on your SLM, self-learning material that will be posted on the website. Okay, so when you have time, after 2 days, please revisit the website and look for this event. This will be under past events. So when you look under past events, you will see this recording as well as the SLM unit. It will be downloadable. So my suggestion to you is to please go there, log in, and then download it. I cannot take your emails, right, over this thing. Okay, it is kind of impossible, right? So it is better if you just go there and then if you download it based on your own interest. So I won't make it mandatory. Okay, now we'll look at the last method. Okay, the last method is provocation and movement. So I selected this method because actually this method is quite interesting. Okay, and also in my opinion, this is quite effective. So let's look at it. What is it? Again, right? It is a creative thinking technique. Okay, it involves creating a shock statement that is strong enough to move people out of their psychological inertia, their tendency, which means their tendency to think the way they have always thought, right? So like I said, this is shocking people into thinking outside of the box. Okay, so how we will do this, like I said, we'll tell you, right? It is good for generating outside the box ideas, questioning the status quo, imagining what if, and shocking people into new reality. Okay, so normally when you are thinking outside the box, you have to question the status quo. The status quo means how things are currently, how things are done as of this moment. For example, if you take university learning, before COVID, how was it? It was all done in the class, in a physical environment. Now, post-COVID, it is all done online. Now, in the future, how will it be? Maybe it will be in a virtual setting. We will be meeting in a virtual school, right? And so on. So like I said, okay, the idea here is to question the status quo. So once we start questioning the status quo, we'll get new ideas. And that is the idea. Okay, so let's look at some examples. What are the steps? The first step is to select a focus area, then create reality statements, then develop provocations, generate ideas, and then finally review ideas. Okay, so there are 5 steps here. We select a focus area, we create something called the reality statement. Okay, we'll develop provocations, we'll generate ideas, and then finally we'll review the ideas. Okay, so when we are selecting a focus, the focus topic, okay, the focus should be, okay, so a focus area normally can be a product, it can be a process, it can be a service, or it can be a business model. So when we are talking about provocation and movement, okay, normally the focus topics will be one of these. It can be a product, it can be a service, it can be a process, or it can be a business model. Okay, so now let's look at it. Okay, so I'll skip this. Okay, I'll skip this. I'll directly go to our example. Okay, so our example first says select a focus area. So in our case, the focus area was this. Okay, during off-season, hotel bookings are very low. Increase revenue during off-season. Okay, so this is our goal, right? Our goal, like I said, is to increase off-season revenues. So how can we do that? We will use the provocation and movement technique to identify possible solutions, right? So the focus area will be business models. Okay, so like I said, there are 4 focus areas. One is products, one is service, one is process, one is the business model. So in our case, we will look at the business model. So now we'll examine the business model, the current business model of hotels. So we find that when we look at the current business model, right, the business models have the following. They have a restaurant service for customers. They have rooms for rent for the customers. Their customers are the ones who generate the revenues for the business, right? There's a very high demand during peak seasons for hotels and accommodations. During off seasons, the overheads are constant, meaning, like I said, the overhead costs are constant, right? During off season, there's a low revenue due to lack of customers, and customers are usually non-locals. They're coming from outside, and customers are paying for lodging and fooding primarily, and food are prepared for customers by the hotel. Okay, so this is the current business model or setup. So what is a business model? So again, what is a business model? We will have a separate workshop on this. But to give you a quick idea, a business model normally talks about sustainability. It talks about how the business is going to make money. Okay, and it talks about the basic fundamental or basic operation of a business. So this is the basic operation of a business, right? To put it simply. Okay, these are the basic ways by which businesses are currently operating, right? So now what we'll do is we'll create a reality statement. Okay, so our reality statement is this: during off-season, revenues will necessarily be low due to low volume of customers. Okay, so this is the reality statement. The reality statement normally depicts the reality, and this is the reality. The current reality is that during off seasons, revenues will necessarily be low because of low volume of customers, because we don't get enough customers from outside. Hence the volume, right? Hence our revenues are low, right? So now we'll look at provocation techniques. The first technique is called negation. Okay, so like I said, when we are being provocative, provocative means, like I said, to challenge. Provocative means to challenge. So when we are being challenging, one approach is something called negation. In negation, okay, in negation, what we are doing is we take the opposite stand of the reality statement. The reality, like I said, tells us what is actually happening. But now we take an opposite stand. So we say that off-season revenues will be high, right? This will be the negation. This will be the opposite statement of the reality, right? Because the reality says during off-season, revenues will be low. But here we are saying during off-seasons, revenues will be high. Okay, so how is that possible? How can revenues be high? Now we have to brainstorm. So when we brainstorm, we found that revenues can be high if the customers are non-locals, seeking lodging and fooding, right? If our customers happens to be non-locals, which means they are local customers, right? Then our revenues can be high, right? So this is our statement. Okay, this is our statement. Right? So we found this by looking at negation. Negation, like I said, makes a statement, opposite statement of the reality statement. So in order for negation statement to be true, then this has to be true. The customers need not be non-locals. So now we have to come up with a solution. So how do we ensure that the customers are actually non-local? The solution is to target local customers with new value proposition. New value proposition means what? We have to come up with new ideas for products and services. Earlier, we were talking about fooding and lodging. And that was the prevailing business model, right? The prevailing business model says what? We rely on food and lodging to provide the revenues for the hotels. But now we are going to think forward. We're going to think beyond. We'll think outside of this. Other than lodging and fooding, are there any new value propositions? Are there any ideas that we can propose specifically aimed at local customers, right? And we find that actually there is. We can target all this. We can come up with event management, right? Event management, like for example, weddings, birthdays, right? We can specialize on this, or office conferences, seminars, okay? So we can specialize in these. So these are normally local, right? People don't come from outside to have weddings here in Sikkim, right? It will be the Sikkimis, the local people only who will be having weddings here. So we can target them. We can become very good in event management. Likewise, we can develop a new brand concept where we promote local tourism, right? So we will start advertising. We will start creating value propositions. that will attract local customers to come and spend the weekend with us, or to come and spend the holidays, right? It doesn't have to be that it has to be outsiders coming in. We can have local customers. Okay, even people from government, Gantok itself, they will come in, right? Stay with us, maybe for the weekend or something. Okay, so can we create a brand like that? Can we create a concept like that, right? So that will be the challenge. We can start a restaurant service, right? That aims at local people. So we can have an in-house restaurant service. Okay, this restaurant service will be operational despite whether they are hotel customers or not. So we're looking at non-local customers. We can lease the space also, right? Okay, during off season, because like I said, during off season there's a lot of space. Hotels have big infrastructure. Infrastructure is one of the biggest assets. So can we lease this space, maybe to Zumba classes, maybe to yoga classes, maybe to other kind of things like that, right? So we can lease space, or we can go into partnerships with hotel management institutes, and we can provide internships where they provide us free fees, right? And so on. So there are many different avenues that we can explore. Okay, so this is the outcome of negation. So this is a provocation technique, right? In provocation technique, what we are doing is we are thinking opposite, and then we are taking situations in the extreme to make that opposite true. What else should we do? And we found that these are the things we need to do. Now there's another technique as well, right? When it comes to provocation, okay, something called reversal. So in reversal, what we do is we will reverse. Okay, what we are doing is we are reversing the value proposition, so to speak, right? So here we'll say that people traveling will require boarding. Okay, so this time what we'll do is we will, because hotels primarily what they are doing is they are providing boarding service. So we know that people, when they are traveling, they will require boarding, right? So can we take this concept further? So if we take this concept further, we have to identify new customer segments other than non-local customers, right? Okay, non-local holiday customers who come for holiday. Other than them, who potentially require boarding when they are traveling. So then we realize that actually there are several other segments. We have business travelers, we have government employees, and we have military personnel. Okay, so these are possible segments that we can target, especially government employees and military personnel. Hotels can go into a lease agreement with the state government, right? Saying that if the state government is having a training program, they can actually house all their staff or all the employees in that particular hotel, right? And the hotel, and in turn, the hotel will pay a certain amount of fees to the, or commission to the government for that, right? And so on. So there are many multiple ways that by which we can actually explore opportunities. But here what we are doing is, like I said, we are doing a reversal provocation. Okay, we are doing a reversal provocation. And likewise with military personnel, right? We can identify opportunities with military personnel because they are constantly traveling as well, right? All the military personnel, they normally have military camps, but nonetheless, they may also like civilian camps, right? So we can offer our services to them. Okay, so this is called reversal. Now there's another provocation technique called exaggeration. In exaggeration, what we do is we exaggerate. So we say that off season will be the real money maker, right? Now this is kind of difficult to fathom. Hence it is called an exaggeration. How can off season be a real money maker, right? Well, it can be. So if it is such that off season is a real money maker, we have to do what? We have to focus on the difference. Focus on the difference between the traditional business and the new business. So this is the traditional business, right? They are focused more on non-local customers. They have a traditional value proposition based on fooding and lodging. They have a traditional concept where people come in from holidays, they are seeking boarding and lodging, and so they come to you. Now here, if you are talking about new, if you are talking about differences, right? This new business outlook will have to focus on local customers. It will require new value propositions. It will require new concept. It will require a new brand, right? And so on. Okay. So this is the challenge, right? Can we do this? If we can do this, right, the solution is to create new brands and concept development. Okay. The solution is to target local customers with new value propositions, right? So a possible solution is to do something like a family getaway. So you can develop and promote a concept called family getaway, focused specifically on local customers, where the local customers do not have to travel outside of the state. They can come to your hotel. Okay, the hotel will provide solutions, right? Value propositions. Okay, or value proposition means products and services specifically aimed at this new concept, right? For example, if you're talking about family getaways, what can you promote? What can you provide to attract families to come and visit your hotels, to spend a weekend with your hotel? What can you do? Can somebody give me some examples of family getaways? Okay. Anyone? Can anybody? Okay, see, what we are doing here is, like I said, we are looking at a situation, right? We are looking at a provocative situation. What we are doing is we are exaggerating the situation. We are saying that actually the off-season is the real money maker. We know that the off-season can never be the real money maker. But let's suppose it is a real money maker. So for that to happen, what should we do? Right? So we are looking at solutions. The solution would be to come up with an entirely new brand and concept, away from the traditional concept. Focus on non-local customers. Now we have to focus on local customers. And now we have to focus on new value propositions. New value proposition means new products and services, new ideas. So one concept is to come up with something called family getaways. So how can we attract families? If you look at just now what is happening in Gangtok, this is actually happening, right? In Gangtok, a lot of these local customers, local hotels, they are having swimming pools, right? Swimming pools are actually attracting family members, right? So over the weekend, especially over the summer, you will see a lot of the families going to all this, frequenting all these hotels, mainly for this swimming pool and so on, right? So this question mark could be a swimming pool. This is a value proposition aimed not at non-locals, but at local customers. And this is the trend just now. Can you come up with additional solutions? Focus on family getaways aimed at local customers, not at non-locals. What will attract, what will prompt family members to come to your hotel, right? As a part of relaxation or over the weekend, right? So this is something to think about. Okay, so like I said, this is how we are coming up with possible solutions, right? We are ideating possible solutions, and this is one way. This is called the provocation and movement technique. Okay, now we'll go to the last one, which is called the dream situation, right? So the dream situation will take the best scenario. The best scenario is that Sikkim will emerge as a top international and national tourist destination, ensuring footfall throughout the year. So we won't have anything called off-season, because we will have customers throughout the year. So every month is a season year, right? So this is a dream situation. So if this situation happens, what can we do, right? So again, the solution is to seek new opportunities, because this will bring with it many new opportunities. For example, okay, this will be some of the trend. Environment preservation and conservation will become a top priority. This is bound to happen. Already it is happening in all the international locations, right? Just yesterday, I was looking at a BBC program, and they were talking about this. I think it was in Indonesia. Oh no, it was in Bali. Yeah, it was in Indonesia, Bali, right? And how they are cleaning up all the beaches, right? Because they want to preserve their international tourist destination. So environment preservation is becoming more and more important, and this will be the case in Sikkim as well, right? should international tourism get momentum, catch momentum. Sustainable tourism will take over. So there's a concept called sustainable tourism, right? So this will actually start to become more and more important. And a lot of new opportunities and niches will open up, right? When we have attracting international as well as national tourists. For example, okay, these might be the new niches. Things like adventure tourism, things like ecotourism, things like tourism circuits. All this will become all the more important, right? And so these are new niches that we can exploit. Now, as a business person, I can ideate possible ideas on these topics, right? So I can come up with adventure tourism. I can come up with ecotourism. I can come up with a tourism circuit that connects, let's say, Bhutan, Nepal, surrounding regions, right? Okay, and create a tourism circuit. Or maybe it can be a religious tourism circuit. So whatever the case, it provides a lot of ample opportunity. Okay, so this is provocation and movement. Okay, and with this we come to the end of this workshop. I don't want to extend the workshop beyond 4 o'clock, and just now we have just hit 4 o'clock exactly. Okay, so like I said, there are still several more techniques that which we are not going to cover today, which I've left outside of this workshop. This will be available in your SLM, self-learning material, which will be uploaded to our platform. Okay, so make sure you log in, you download those, and you review those at your leisure. So you can learn a lot. Hopefully, you learn something from here, or from this workshop. Okay. So finally, I'd like to leave you with this quotation. The goal has never been about being an entrepreneur or starting a company. It has always been about solving a problem we deeply care about. Okay, this is by Shashank ND. And who is he? Does anyone know who is Shashank ND? He's actually he's the CEO and he's the founder of a company called Practo. Okay, Practo is an online healthcare company. So what exactly Practo does, what their business model is, I'm not quite aware of just now. I haven't done enough research, but I know for a fact that Practo is one of the fastest growing healthcare companies globally. They were just able to raise $90 million in fundraising. They have around 2,000 employees, and they're planning to hire 500 more over this next 6 months. Okay, and this company has just been in operation for over 7 years. Already, they have expanded overseas. They have a platform that has a link. Right? They have linkages with over 8,000 hotels. They have linkages with over 2 lakhs healthcare practitioners, meaning doctors. Okay, so this is a platform that has widely used. And like I said, what he was doing was he was not looking at profit initially. He was looking at a niche. He was looking at a healthcare. There was a need for a mobile healthcare system. So he fulfilled that niche. And so he's a social entrepreneur and a very successful one. Okay, so with this, I will end this workshop. And like I said again, hopefully it made sense to you. Okay, and I hope there was a little bit of learning from this workshop. Yeah, so let me stop the recording here.